Hi, my name's Kevin, and today I'm going to do a demonstration of how I paint clouds in watercolour, which is a very difficult thing and potentially a frustrating endeavour. But anyway, let's see what we can do. I'm by no means an expert. I'll just make that disclaimer at the outset. I do really like the way the likes of Matthew White and Andy Evenson paint clouds, and their approach in general, that lovely loose style. I do like that. So this is going to be the back of the paper. So we're not stretching the paper, we're wetting the back. Get a nice sheen, and then flip it over. Okay. Just using the sponge really to evenly spread the water. This paper is Saunders Waterford, £140 knot surface, so it's cold pressed. I've never tried it on hot pressed paper. Sorry if my fat head's getting in the way. I'm just trying to look at the sheen on the paper, and I think we can be okay with that. Right, okay. Excuse me. So the water tends to stick the paper to the board, which incidentally needs to be waterproof. I sometimes use Gator board. I'm using the lid of my John Pike palette in this instance. Just mixing up a puddle of cobalt blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue in there, and a bit of lavender, which is a Holbein colour. Consistency is really important with this technique. Right, can you see how when I'm swishing my brush around in it, the paint isn't reforming straight away. It's kind of staying put for a while. Let's see how we got on with that. It is very much trial and error, and seeing what works best for you. Also as well, the ambient temperature makes a big difference. So let's start getting this on the paper now. I tend to prefer making the outline first of the clouds. Having watched Andy Evenson and Matthew White, they tend to do it the other way around. What I tend to find with that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but for myself, I tend to find that the corners will dry too quickly. And this is kind of my attempt to mitigate that to some extent. Okay, I'm gonna get a bit more green. So cerulean blue. Cerulean blue. So again, as I'm wafting my brush around there, you see how the brush strokes remain. Okay. So I'm going to mix a light grey, lavender with a touch of raw sienna. Just to give a lighter grey. Okay, a bit more water. So it is that balance really with the water. Just picking up a paper towel here. Let's start carving some of these shadow shapes in. What I tend to find more recently is that it's a good idea to keep the brush on the paper. It tends to stop the brush from depositing too much moisture. As soon as you lift, what I tend to find is as soon as I lift the brush, it can tend to release a bit of colour onto the paper. Another thing to be aware of is the edges will tend to dry faster, so there's a bit of a hard edge there. So let's get a darker, maybe get some burnt sienna into that blue that we mix for the sky colour. Not dark enough. A bit of ultramarine and burnt sienna. And there we go. Okay, let's get a bit of shadow into this. That's a little bit dry, that mixture. I don't think that's going to spread. Okay. Makes you realise when you start to get into doing this type of work, just how little. I'm just going to pick up a bit of neutral tint there. Let's get a bit of variation into this. Makes you realise just how little white there is in clouds. Sure if I can soften that. There's no moisture at all in the brush. Let's see if I can soften that edge. Obviously, if there's moisture in the brush, you're likely to get a bloom, which is not what we want. So when I've put my colour down there, quite enough water because it's not, there we go. It wasn't diffusing. So that's basically it. I mean, the thing to bear in mind is as well that it's difficult to get the same results that you would get when you're in the flow with making a video and being conscious of how it turns out. It tends to get in the way a bit. Making excuses there, but yeah, that's basically it. The other thing, obviously, to be aware of is to make the shadows dark enough with the amount that watercolour dries, that lightens as it dries. But yeah, I think we've got the essence of it there. Haven't got any blooms, and all of the edges are nice and soft. So just be aware that the corners and the edges dry faster than the rest of the paper. And that's basically it. Hope it's been helpful. If you're going to paint any cloud studies and post them on Facebook, for example, if you wouldn't mind tagging me in, that would be great. Okay, that's great. Well, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much for watching.